everybody, it's Allison. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In my last video, I showed you how to use distress oxides on glossy paper, and I had mentioned at the end that I was going to use one of the panels to stamp on, to see if you could stamp on it. So here I am back with that, and here is the card that I made, and it uses the Beautifully Imperfect collection, which is so much fun, from Spellbinders. So here is the stamp set in this collection, Sculpted, Scripted, Floral, and it has matching dies. And there's even dies for the two sentiments. Now I have my MagInk tray that I showed you in my last video from Glassboard Studio. It's going to hold my dies because it has a magnet. And I like to lose things, so the magnet comes in handy. Now here is that panel that I made in my last video. I will link that at the end of this video. And I have all these dies for the petals that I'm going to cut out of this panel. So this panel does have a layer of micro glaze on it, and I didn't know if I could stamp on it. But I grabbed my Archival ink here, and I stamped on this scrap piece, and here I am rubbing it to make sure it's not coming off. This was just another glossy paper panel that I didn't really love the way it turned out. But here we are, we're going to stamp. Now these have a pretty large border around them, the stamps do. It actually goes a little bit outside the size of the die cuts. So I've cut all these dies with white cardstock, and I'm going to place the negative pieces around the pieces that I'm going to stamp. And that's going to keep the ink from getting onto my grip mat. Now, normally I don't mind getting stuff on my grip mat, but this is Archival ink. It's not going to be terribly easy to get off. And the other thing about these negative pieces, are going to come in handy later. So you'll see that in a bit. Now these little cubes, these are distressed Archival ink cubes, or mini, whatever you want to call them. These are old. Well, I don't know how long I've had them, but they are pretty dry. So I was pretty lucky to get all the stamping out of this that I did, and that's why you'll see, well, I'm not going to show you, but I stamped these guys like 2 or 3 times because the ink pad is pretty dry. I do actually have a full-size Archival ink black pad, but that is really dry. Oh, me and my dry ink pads. Now, Stays On ink would also work well on this microglaze, but I don't have Stays On ink. But these are the 2 inks that I know will work on microglaze, and that is why I grabbed this ink pad. Now here is when it occurred to me that I would take the white die cuts and stamp them. I had already cut them. So these negative pieces come in handy because now I can just replace the die cuts into the opening and keep stamping. I don't have to move the stamp. And there we go. So now I have the little center piece here. And again, I will pop the white die cut in here and stamp. And you can see on these white negative pieces how that black outline comes, you know, it just goes beyond the die cut. So I saved my grip mat from a lot of cleaning. Now, maybe you guys already figured this out, but at this point I realized that 2 of these dies are leaves, not petals, and I need more petals. So thankfully there's enough left in this panel for me to cut 4 more petals. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to stamp these all again, which, had I thought about it before, I could have done all of them easily and quickly using those negative pieces. Now, I think I mentioned in my last video that I didn't love the way this panel turned out. I felt like I added too much yellow. But the great thing about these kinds of backgrounds is that they're great for die cutting. So I think this was just the best use for this kind of panel. I do want some leaves that have more green in them. And I do have this panel that I created last month. I think I had mentioned in my last video that I had created some of these panels with oxides and glossy paper last month, but I hadn't filmed them. So this is one of those panels. I just was able to kind of make this rainbow pattern sometimes you can have a bit more control over these kinds of panels when you want. Sometimes it's fun to not have control. So I'm going to cut these 2 leaves out of this green area. And there you see them right there. But of course now I have to stamp all of these again, these 2 leaves and 4 more petals. All right, now for my background, I'm using the Script Text BetterPress plate, and I have a black piece of paper. Now there is a die in this new collection called the Deckled Edge Script die, along with a lot of other things that help give the look of a multimedia piece. But I'm going to use this plate, which I really love. And I have my VersaMark ink because I'm going to emboss. But I'm going to try to ink up this plate in a very random way. I don't want to ink up the whole thing because I don't want this background to look perfect. So I'm going to take this to my Platinum 6 and run that through. And let's see what we have. Now I did treat my black paper with anti-static embossing powder before doing this. And now I'm going to bring in my white embossing powder. And when I start to put the powder on, I realize that I got a lot more ink on there than I had planned. It looks a little too perfect. Not that it looks perfect, but it was just a little too linear. Like I don't want perfect lines, on each side. So I'm just taking a brush and just randomly brushing off some parts of this. Again, just to, give that imperfect look that I had originally wanted. All right, so now I just have my heat tool here, and I am embossing this powder. And there we go. And now here I'm just starting to play around with the petals, and I thought maybe I would include some of the black and white ones, which I think looks cool, but I decided that I would save those for a different card. Of course, I'll have to make 4 more because I only made 4 of those white petals. But I did decide to go in a different direction because there is this really cool die set that's part of this collection. So here I'm finishing my card, and this die set is so fun. It is called Tangled Threads, and so here this piece I've used as the stem for the flower, and this fun piece in the middle that looks like tangled thread. I thought that really gave it a fun kind of multimedia look. And then there's these pieces. I have used one of those pieces on a card previously. It was the one with the fun avocado dancing with the tomato. I think I showed that in my last video. Now I did trim down the black panel with my Tim Holtz deckled trimmer, and the white card base is 5 by 6 1/4, which is a bit of an odd measurement, but of course it will fit in a 5 by 7 envelope. The sentiment on there is from the stamp set, same stamp set as the flower. And I really love how this came out. This stamp set and just all these things in this collection make it so easy to do a multimedia look when maybe that's not your thing. Maybe you think you can't do multimedia, but this just makes it a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed making this card. I hope that you enjoyed watching. I hope you like the card. Leave me a comment. Let me know. Do you do multimedia with your card making? I'm interested to hear. All right, thank you for joining me. I hope you all are having a great weekend, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.